Excellent, and welcome to PnP Weekly episode 87, and I needed to check it out as immediately. So it's 15th of June 2020, and we do have a visitor in house. But before we go there, let's actually start with a quick intro. So this is PnP Weekly, where we talk about all of the stuff what's happening in Microsoft 365 or SharePoint Online, well, actually potentially even in on-premises, Microsoft Teams, Craft, all of that stuff. My name is Valdek, and I'm a program manager from the OneDrive SharePoint platform team. And with me as a co-host, let's start with you, Waldek. Who are you?
Hi, everybody. My name is Waldek Mastykarz. I am head of product at Rencore. And today, as Vesa said, we have a guest from the other side of the world for us. Yes. John Liu from Sydney, Australia. Welcome, John.
Hello. My name is John Liu. I have been a consultant in SharePoint and Office 365 for a long time. Office/SharePoint MVP. Last few years, I've started working a lot with Microsoft Flow. So, and I also Power Automate. You use Power Automate to make flows, exactly. Yeah. And I'm actually in the middle of transitioning from a consultant to a startup. So starting my own startup, wanting to try what is making a product, like almost doing what Waldek is doing. So living that hey, what is make a product and learn all the new things about, stuff I've never done before.
You mean like accounting, marketing, sales, acquisition, product planning, like nothing that has nothing to do with tech?
I really believe if you build it, they will come. And I will tell you right now, there is such a thing called a marketing pipeline and then a marketing funnel and a sales funnel. And those are completely new stuff. Don't know what those are.
Yes.
That's actually quite a classic discussion point in the PnP Weekly as well, where quite often people have this feeling that, hey, I plugged it, I put it in internet, it's in the wiki of GitHub, why can't they find it? And it's like, well, they can't. There's humongous amount of information out there. Unless you go and tell them that this is important for you, how would they know, right? Let's actually talk about your product and your startup first. What's the product? Let's not make this as a marketing
elevator pitch. Elevator pitch. What is the elevator pitch?
Yes.
Okay.
Why would people use that, and what is it?
So I wrote a lot of flows, and then I realized that I can't find my own flows. There's just too many. So I decided, well, I'm going to put that into a single-page application, a web application, where if I log in as me, it will just list all my flows, and then I can find them quickly. So that tool was called Flow Studio. I then added Power Apps as well, and then changed the name to PowerStudio, PowerStudio.app. It is a freemium tool because I kind of want people to use it, right? So it's mostly freemium, but if you run as administrator, you could see everybody's stuff. So that part is premium. So that's basically me putting fun tools in it that I would need. And then I thought, well, if I need it, maybe other people will need it. Maybe I should make the UI a bit nicer so people will use it. So that's really the first tool. That tool is being around for over 2 years now. Used by more than 4,000 people, so it keeps increasing.
Nice.
And then from that list, I send people newsletter, which I skip every month because I just don't have the good discipline to. I skip every other month, so it's like a bi-monthly newsletter.
Bi-monthly, yeah.
Yeah, and then a year ago, I thought, well, this tool requires an admin to log in. And imagine you're the administrator that needs to keep track of flows are running nicely. And every Monday you have to log in and check. It just seems very, we are supposed to be automating all this stuff and such a manual process. So I thought, what if there is an automatic server-based thing that's just checking for you, and then it could send you reports. So that's the second part of it. I call it clarity, because I think we could all do with more clarity in Power Platform. And it's almost the thought of, we talk about teams and governance, and 5 years later, governance is a big problem with Teams, and you see Microsoft is moving to solve that problem, but also there is a lot of tools from the community and vendors like Rencore that tries to solve that problem. So in the same vein, I'm thinking, okay, why don't I give it a stab and solve that problem for the Power Platform? So that is the second tool, still working on it. But maybe that's enough intro, huh?
Yeah, no, that's a really interesting discussion, because I think one of the discussion points, and sorry for jumping directly on this one maybe, but on the partner, let's say, finding a gap and then addressing a gap, how do you feel then on Microsoft actually coming and, okay, then they provide the same capability and then they eat up your business? And is there a concern on that, or what's the thinking? Actually, this is a question for both of you, because I think that's the classic discussion point of well, Microsoft is going to anyway come and eat up my idea, and then they're evil, because that's natural transition and evolution of the product as well. So is there a partner opportunity? How do you see the side of this one?
Maybe I try to answer first, because I'm sure Waldek has thought about this a lot more than me. But I think, and this is just something I've heard others said, you are always running in front of the steamroller. That's pretty much what you're doing. As a startup, we could run quicker, make decisions a lot quicker. But I do also see that from Microsoft's side, Microsoft really has scale, right? So we will run and be very specific and try to target the niche quickly, and Microsoft will come and take out the scale. So yeah, I don't know what that means eventually. I guess try to run in front of Microsoft as far as I can, right? But,
and to be fair, it's not like even Microsoft has the infinite resources, and so it might be that yes, we'll tackle some feature, but it might happen in 5 years, or it might happen in 10, or it might never happen, because again, is there a worldwide customer need for something? So, also, what's your thinking about that?
So that is exactly that, right? The way I see it is that if you build something, if you have an idea, like everybody has an idea, like the chances that your idea is unique are so slim, because there are so many people in the world. And as you say, like if you have a problem, what are the odds that somebody else has exactly the same thing too? So there are even odds that whatever problem you have might have already been solved. Right. So that's like the illusion that whatever you have, that is the next big thing. Well, maybe not. But I think it comes down to how well can you execute on it? How many people you can reach? How much of a problem it proves to actually be? Do people need that? Because I think the odds are high that imagine for the application you have built, it turns out to be like you build it and people see it, and then everybody says, we need this, we need this, we need this. It's a matter of time until that news reaches to Microsoft, right? And at that point, like they would say, like 80%, 90% of people who are on Power Platform say they need this. It's logical, and it's next step that Microsoft will deliver a part of that experience of these features as a part of the out-of-the-box suite.
Yeah.
But they will never reach the depth you are in, because from your point of view, you are expert in one particular field. Microsoft does the breadth. They want to offer that, like the way I see it, Microsoft wants to offer whatever, you would say 20% of work to cover 80% of scenarios. So whatever majority of the field needs, what is the least amount of work they can do to cover that? If there is 20% of a niche expertise needed for one particular case, that is the partner room for you, for me, for everyone else to cover, right? These are the niche scenarios. Like if you want to go really deep on automation around managing flows, providing insights, like even thing like center of excellence might not even be going that far, because again, it's an addition to offer this additional features that aren't available out of the box, basically to see, is there a need? Is there interest? Can we do anything about it? Like, does anybody even care about that? Right? And I think that if you are expert in a niche, and if you innovate, if you keep working around that and you have audience, I don't think you need to worry about Microsoft like stealing your
precious
idea.
Whatever. Yeah,
exactly right. Because like the way I see it is like they're really thinking about, and it's across the line, whether it's SharePoint, whether it's Flow, whether it's anything else. It's about the breadth of the field. Microsoft is not interested in building something for 100 people. For them, it's all about the market, the scale.
And obviously, if you think about, let's say, the small company opportunities, there's always then the additional, let's say, the consulting, the more approachable smaller company who actually wants to commit and help the customer rather than with their expertise and their consultants who are specialized on that particular topic rather than generalists, which are then the people from Microsoft or the other partners. But it's
and I guess that is one, and two, and also the verticals. Like flow in healthcare, flow in government, flow in finance. Like, what are the specific demands that vertical might have that aren't available out of the box and which you or somebody else could add on top, right? So these are also the cases that aren't always available out of the box because they are just too specific, especially if you even think about global world across, like different requirements for healthcare in the US versus the Netherlands versus Australia.
Yeah. Do we, by the way, John, on that particular topic, multiple questions actually, but just out of curiosity, do we have scenario and industry-based templates for Flow, or some sort of a set of galleries where people can go and say, oh, this is an interesting set and design. Can I pull it down? Can I use it? And then give credits for the people. I'm just thinking out where we are with Flow's maturity because I'm not super up to date.
There are two areas. Out of the box, there is a whole bunch of templates that you can search and add.
Sure.
In the experience, very much similar to say if this and that. You could say, oh, I want to do something with my Outlook, and then it gives you a bunch of templates.
Yep.
But then in the Flow and the Power Platform Community Forum, there's also a section with more detailed templates. So these are exports of flows or maybe sets of flows that people have exported. And then there's a detailed blog post about how to set it up. So it requires a bit more setting it up. You may have to configure, say, a SharePoint list to make it work. But it's more detailed about a more scenario-driven thing. And also, the Flow and Power Apps, they are built with the business applications team, so they're built with the Dynamics team. So there is a solutions framework that is involved in this picture. So you could have Flow and Power App and multiple flows, or maybe even a CDS list for tracking the entities, all bundled in a solution, and then deploy the whole solution and being able to manage the versioning and also retract the whole solution as a set. So for a more complete, and we come from the SharePoint background where we've lived in that solution deployment world, and that's a really nice model to be able to say, okay, here's a full solution. I just want to install it, and then when there's an update, I want to apply the update version, or I want to roll it back.
And is there also
very similar to WSP.
And is there also a way to include other things into that, like a team, right? So you would create, you would provision solution that includes a team that has attached Power App to it, that also has CDS and a list. So can you also include other resources in that, or is it very much specific to the BP area?
Yeah, right now it's very much in the Power Platform and the Dynamics area, so CDS. There are more stuff that are coming out in the Power Platform. So the Power Virtual Agents, the bots, those will also be deployed through the solutions framework. The ALM, so the Application Lifecycle Management for Power Apps and Flow, are tied to the solutions as well. Very similar to WSP. In integrating that with, say, Office side, so if you want to deploy a flow to many SharePoint lists, that remains to be a bit tricky. In the solution framework, you can reconfigure which site you want to go to, but it is still a one-to-one deployment. You can't say, oh, I want this flow, but I want to copy it to 20 different sites. You end up Yeah, you can use DevOps to help you replace the URLs. You can use a flow to deploy flows, so make a copy and change all the URLs. In Flow Studio, I'm plugging. There's a little migrate tool. You can manage one-to-many deployments for SharePoint. A lot of bits I throw into Flow Studio are things that I don't see Microsoft building. Right? I realize, you're doing solutions, which is wonderful, but it handles one-to-one. In the SharePoint world, we need one-to-many. And we want to change the original flow and reapply it to 50 copies. So that's the type of thing that I put into Studio. What was the other question? I forgot. This is the world I live in.
But I guess like this is very much this what makes it really interesting, right? Because if you are stuck, let's say, only in SharePoint world or only in Power Apps world or Power Platform world, you tend to adjust your thinking to that world. And then only when you look at both, you're like, hey, like if you are an enterprise, you have these needs for deployment, like the things, as you said, like we've seen in WSPs, in SPFX, like the ability to deploy things across sites. Business apps are very much from this, like, I, as a person, wants to build an app for my department, for my thing, but it's not really about deployment to everybody else. Like that is being done differently. Exactly. Right. So it's interesting to see like crossing moving from one area to another and then see like, hey, what if I have this need that is filled in this space in that way? How would I do it here? Right. And then you come up exactly as you said, John, with these different scenarios for, hey, like, how would I do it? Like, what options do I have? Is there an API? Is there a solution framework? Is there some other way to distribute that at scale, as opposed to just go to UI, upload the package, like do this manual clicking?
You can always do screen scraping. So.
And then with business or the RPA, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
but coming back on the just to close up the partner opportunities and everything, just a note on that one, and that's actually a good way of explaining the partner niche as well. And John, in your case, you basically just saw that there's a gap and you started addressing that, and then hey, maybe somebody else actually has the same need as well, and then ultimately,
it turns out 4,000 other people do.
Exactly, and then ultimately, who knows? If it's a good enough product, who knows? Even Microsoft might buy it, because even if you think about the what is it, iPhone Outlook, it wasn't built by Microsoft. I can't remember the company name, but when we basically bought it,
Sunrise was the calendar.
Sunrise or something, something like that. But it's one of those really good examples where, excuse me, what is your product idea? Yeah, we're building an email client.
Even Visio, Excel wasn't built by Microsoft. Windows wasn't like
PowerPoint. That is true. Yeah. So, but again, there's multiple different opportunities. Absolutely.
I did remember one more bit I was gonna add. Sorry, I went off.
No worries.
For Teams, there is additional work. So the Teams integration in being able to create a Power App and then bundle it as a Teams, and being able to deploy that, there is some work that the Power Platform team is doing with the Teams, Microsoft Teams team. And that's a special case in that I think as a whole, Microsoft sees Teams as the next OS. I don't know whether that's I see Waldek smiling, but I kind of...
it makes sense.
It makes sense.
Yeah,
absolutely.
And then, so various different groups like the Power Platform is trying to align and say, well, let's make sure if you want to just create a Power App and deploy that to Teams and have everyone have access to that, let's bring that, let's make that really easy to do. So there is integration.
The one that I want to ask, and maybe you know that, maybe not, recently there was more attention towards or about creating teams from a template. So basically have this pre-canned team, like if you want to have a team for a project with preset set of tabs and whatnot, like you create it and you have basically a template for a team. Do you know if a template can also include a Power App?
Don't know.
Okay.
Maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, I think we're still missing the Power App reusable packaging, and except from a export-import personal perspective, but the wider deployment packaging, that's still missing. And I think that's the let's say the gap here. To be fair, I think it's been a strategic decision, or so it seems. I don't have facts for them to approach the end user and power users first, and then they start thinking the enterprise side, which is completely
have to
valid
start
approach
somewhere.
to take. Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you think about from a SharePoint side, we dinosaurs, we came from on-premises, and we needed to figure out, and we were 2 decades in on-premises or whatever, more than a decade. So we realized the importance of governance, enterprises, and all of that. And then we started being much more flexible from an end user perspective. And now if you have a look on the SharePoint, we're actually further simplifying SharePoint Online because it grew to be too complex. Now,
but I mean, even then, right? I mean, you can see the journey being the other way around, where you would start as a server product for a portal for around the company, then around team, and at some point we would see you had the My Sites, which is now the OneDrive for business, which is very, very much going direction towards personal space.
Yep.
Right. And now, as you said, like you simplify the UI because at the end of the day, it's about users, people who are used to this simplified experiences, which you also want to bring. Like there is no more distinction between the enterprise complex stuff versus personal simple stuff. No, people work with personal stuff and they expect the same in their work. So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah. So, John, you're a good example of a person who come from on-premises with on-premises experiences and all of that. We before we started, you even mentioned that you still every now and then do WSP packages. So, for those who don't understand what they are, they're farm solutions for SharePoint.
Back in the days,
on-premises.
20 years ago, there was this packaging format.
No, it's not 20 years ago, but still. So, let's be realistic. 10 years ago. So.
SharePoint 2007, which was originally
2007 introduced, yes, but there was no documentation on it, so nobody was able to use it at the time. So, but that's a separate discussion. So, how do you see the transition of your, let's say, work, your day-to-day work from being in on-premises and then moving to the cloud? And how did you end up doing Power Apps or PowerFlow? Sorry, PowerFlow. Sorry, Power Automate stuff.
You learned first.
Whatever they are.
Power Automate becomes PowerFlow.
Yes. But how do you see the transition? You started from on-premises, and then based on a customer demand, you transitioned to the cloud. And has it changed your day-to-day work at all, or is it just still the same, learning new stuff every single day and moving along?
For me, it's always learning new stuff. So I actually started in about 2001 on .NET Beta. So my first projects were not related to SharePoint at all. I did .NET Beta when it was launched in Australia with one of a .NET consulting company called SSW in Sydney. I pretty much went out of university and went straight into a Microsoft consulting. They happened to run a user group as well. So very early on, I was in the user group community, realizing, hey, I could learn a lot of stuff from what people were sharing. I don't have to I'd never played with that or that, and I could just glean it. And I know when I need to maybe use it in a client project, hey, now I've seen something. I know a little bit about that thing. And when I got to SharePoint, which is actually about 2008, I was using ASP.NET Skills to completely hack it. I will just confess right now, I was
building repeaters, not using web parts.
No. I was doing worse. I was like, wow, we need to insert stuff into the web.config, and this is how we're going to do it.
Your navigation providers, your profile managers.
Okay. I have a link I need to share with you. How do I share? How do I share a link? How do I share a link?
In the chat.
And are you gonna share your screen and open this?
I can share my screen if we actually. All
right. We're gonna bring up this thing. We're gonna bring up this.
Okay, so we can.
This is good.
This thing. Yeah. So
we're gonna bring this one
this is
up.
good.
This is how far back we go. Actually, I have another URL. I'll share both.
Yes. Brilliant.
This is what we were doing.
Yes. And it's still online, right? It's from 2009. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can
brilliant. You imagine we do this today? Try to change SharePoint Online URL.
Good luck with that, buddy. So let me submit support ticket to Microsoft to rewrite URLs on all their servers. No.
This was, when your client says, I want my SharePoint public sites to have the perfect Google search friendly URL. So we need to get rid of pages. We need to get rid of .aspx. We need to get rid of the GUID that gets attached. But this is exactly the thing I mentioned, right? So my background was back then, I would build a lot of internet sites, right? And just not SharePoint really, like just internet sites, right? And that was the thing, like, so that was the mindset, like I want them to be accessible, search friendly, and so forth and so on. And SharePoint was like, in a way, it was in my way to achieving that. So I came up with all these hacks, like I want to get rid of it. I want these sites to be a first-class citizen on the web, and not be like, because it's SharePoint. You can no. Like, don't tell me what I cannot do. Tell me how can I do that, right? So we would end up with all these hacks that in the after side is like yes, well, you can do it, but just because you can, should you? No.
Yeah.
But I learned that later.
Exactly. Okay, let's get back on the.
I wanted to see Vesa's face.
For reference,
no,
do not do this. Do not do this.
So because to be fair, I've used the similar kind of things with my customers back in the time as well. So it's nothing really new from that perspective. So anyway, but on premises was different. On premises absolutely was different. You're hacking that, and then suddenly customers started demanding you to learn cloud. Or how did the transition go? So
taking all my .NET skills, I didn't actually go directly to JavaScript. I did know jQuery quite well, but I went to Silverlight.
Yep.
So everyone's like, and I was
WPF on the web, right?
Yeah. And 2010, it was all about. I was doing SharePoint Saturdays around Australia. We have 6 cities that had it, and we were moving. I was, getting to talk about development. I was telling everyone to do Silverlight, and then.
But I mean,
when they got killed,
we told everybody to use Silverlight.
No.
But wasn't even the first Azure portal built on that?
I think it was,
A whole bunch of stuff was. Yeah. That's very good memories. Anyway, and then when it got buried, I kind of received the honorable title in Australia. Whatever tech John picks, don't touch it, because it will get killed. So then I was like, well, we don't have a end user, and also because I came from such a strong dev background where you build everything. Almost when I realized that, okay, I do want to align my career with SharePoint, then an internal realization was also that, John, before you get on a stage and tell people how to hack everything, why don't you learn how you're supposed to do it properly first? Yeah. And then you can caveat and say, well, there is this scenario where you really might have to hack, but there's all these other reasons that will make this problematic. So you just have to weigh the pros and cons. So that became later my messaging, which I think aligns with many of the SharePoint professionals. You start out with like, oh, what did I get myself into? And then over time you realize, okay, I get a whole lot of functionality for free.
Yep.
But there is some restrictions as well, and what that means.
Yeah.
And then
would you say that still stands now that we are in a cloud? The idea of like, don't build everything. There are so many things that you can reuse. Learn what is available first before you start developing.
I would think so. Definitely. I think right after Silverlight was Mark Anderson's SP services.
Yep. Yeah.
Right at the time, he was a heretic for doing that. Like people go,
yes, he was.
Why would you use that and not just deploy a DLL to the GAG? And we're like,
oh yeah.
Because you don't have to restart the server. That's why. And and over time that became kind of the model going forward, and then the very briefly lived add-ins.
Whenever the APIs were good enough, then that grew to be the factor way of doing stuff. Absolutely.
Yeah. And then I think when it was all JavaScript, then we all got pretty good at building jQuery web parts. Very low deployment. You can even deploy using sandbox solutions, so don't do any code behind. Just use it to deploy JavaScript. And it's
still,
really
by the way, supported. Still works.
And so,
Vesa is cringing like, no, not sandbox. Don't say the S word. Don't mention the S word.
No. So obviously, for any of the, let's say, newer people in this area, they might not know what is a sandbox solution. But I think from a learning perspective, sandbox solution was a matter. We needed to go there to understand that we can actually use stuff in the client side, because like John was doing, sandbox solution quite soon people realized that wait a minute, it's actually better if you build JavaScript-based extensibility using the sandbox solution, and then we're able to push stuff, a complex stuff, which was using jQuery, whatever it was to use at the time, with a flawless experience and all of that. It had also the server-side piece, which was just okay. I don't know why did we do that, but again, it's a natural transition from sandbox solution then to the add-ins, and from add-ins to the SharePoint framework. So kind of. So there's logical steps on this journey.
I mean, it makes perfect sense. Like, we came from this on-prem world where you would build .NET code, and that was the strongest area to extend the UI. Sure, you could, like back then, you could have done everything in UI, jQuery, and so forth, but it wasn't really as strong. Like the REST API wasn't really there. So you could have done you could have done only that many things comparing to what you could have done in server-side code. You could integrate with anything and everything. Like, you had this whole rich API that wasn't exposed to you beyond DLLs, right? So there was really no other option. And then only gradually, once CSOM evolved and REST evolved, only then, like, doing things client side made sense. And then especially O365 emerged in a cloud, and there's like, well, you're not gonna deploy DLLs to Microsoft servers, no way, buddy. So we needed a workable alternative for that, which is, I'm pretty sure, also drove the evolution of APIs, right? Like the REST and
Graph APIs as an example.
Also, that is, the more M365 became what it is today, the bigger the need of, like, yes, I want to have access to email and calendar and planner and Teams conversation, Yammer as well, and news. And how do I bring all of that? Well, you need to authenticate 20 million times. Like, not really.
I would like access to stream.
Yeah, well, yes, I think everybody wants to have access to that. Yes,
it makes perfect sense.
It is in the backlog, but yeah, we need to be patient.
So. It's coming on a Thursday.
A Thursday, yes.
I thought it's usually Wednesdays, but okay, Thursdays, got it.
Yeah. We're probably planning for a Wednesday, but then it's delayed for one day because of whatever. So
well, it's going to be Thursday in Australia.
Yes.
True. Yeah.
There you go.
Because you should not ship on Fridays, and if you're shipping on Thursday, that's already Friday in Australia, and therefore, good point.
Yes.
So, yeah.
See what you did.
But how did you, John, in your case, then the Power Automate or Flow at the time, Microsoft Flow at the time, that grew to be your kind of a specialty. How did you end up getting interested on that one?
Man, I'm worried about time, but there's actually more story before we get to Flow. So like everyone else, all my customizations were in JavaScript running in the browser. So the immediate question is, what if I want to run this on a schedule?
Yep.
What do I want to elevate my permissions that I don't have permission to? And
you
then
ask people to go to this page every week on 5 p.m. and there's your schedule.
So when Azure Functions came out and we were able to then push PnP PowerShell into the backend, that was liberating. That was like, finally, when we go to the cloud, Microsoft says, no, we're never going to run your code. Go away, get rid of all your code. But suddenly there's a way for us to run code in the cloud again. And, you just have to figure out OAuth. Oh my God. I think we all got much better at OAuth and auth and different type of ways to get authentication. PnP really helped so much. Like you just, all right, PnP, you handle it. Oh yeah, okay, good. We're good. And that was Erwin's work with the PnP PowerShell and being able to run that. So then I end up automating all this stuff in Azure Functions. And you do run into throttling problem. So sooner or later, you need some sort of orchestration. You need some way to say, look, if this function doesn't run properly, I want to catch it and repeat it. So then you think, okay, do I build that into function where the functions run out of the 5-minute or 10-minute period because of retries? All these other problems happen. So I came to Flow from that angle. It's really weird. I came to Flow completely from a developer angle. I wanted an orchestrator. I wanted something to remember I have a task I need to do. I'm going to execute a function. And if it fails, I want to retry. And I even want to do exponential retry. I don't want to do a, fixed retry. So Flow gave me that. So I actually was looking for an orchestration. Logic apps would have been, to me, equivalent of what I need. But because Flow at the time, also HTTP was part of the standard at the time. So Flow was like, oh, I already have license. I'm not using it. And it's all, I could use this to call my functions. So I start to do more stuff in Flow. And also at the time, Flow was very much in beta. Most of the SharePoint actions was missing. There was not a lot you could do. The very early Flows that before Flow, when Logic Apps first came out and had the SharePoint action, it did this insane thing. Okay, you got to listen. It's like on item created, it will trigger, right? Mm-hmm. And then it will delete that item because it doesn't want to see it again. Imagine a Logic app did that to your SharePoint list.
What? That is kind of interesting way to manage events. So if someone created a document, so let me act on that and delete your document then.
Yeah, it treats the list as a queue.
As a queue, yeah.
Ooh, okay.
I have a blog post on 2016. When Logic App first came out, I'm like, nope.
Your list, SharePoint lists are not a queue.
But then they changed it very quickly. Then there's some tweaks I did, so it's detecting only changes. Anyway, that's all history. By the time Flow was a separate product and much better integrated, but still I had Azure Functions. So I was like, oh, okay, well, if Flow didn't have an action out of the box, I was just going to go to Azure Functions anyway. Yeah. But increasingly, as we see, like, oh, okay, Flow is more targeted at the power user, and we want to go after that replacement to SharePoint workflow. Then, and also when Chucks moved to the Flow side and started adding all these actions, that was really liberating. It just means I don't have to write the function. I just do it in Flow, which means I don't have to manage auth.
And also, you don't need to do like raw REST calls to API and authenticate in Flow, right? Because like that's also an interesting thing. You see like how users, let's say the more skilled users, fill gaps in Flow. Like they build complete OAuth flow in Flow. It's like, wait a minute, like that is like very advanced scenario. But like in order for you to be able to call an API, you need to have a token, and you cannot just store a token. You need to obtain a token. And that is like very elaborate thing to do. Not to mention you need to store credentials. It's like, really, is that the right place? So, it saves you from all of that. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah. So increasingly, I just love how many new actions keep coming out, and then I started. So what I would have traditionally wrote an Azure function for, I start to say, well, can I do that in Flow? If I can, then I don't need to use Azure function. When Chuck's put in the send HTTP to SharePoint, oh my God.
Brilliant.
My
because that
problems are
solves
also,
everything.
We just need another one, send HTTP to Graph. That's it. My job is done.
That would be equivalent. That would be basically solve everything, right? Because then every single every single thing that comes to Graph becomes automatically available in Logic Apps and Flow. So
yes,
there is actually an action in both Logic App and Flow. It's called Invoke with Azure AD. That one will let you do any Microsoft Graph, any Microsoft API with delegate permission. The unfortunate part is it's a premium connector. So
of course it is.
So if you want to do app-only permission, you can use HTTP and just configure the auth to use client ID, client secret. If you want to do delegate permission, you can use Invoke with Azure AD. And that one's really cool. I use it to call Power BI, Microsoft Graph.
Well, but you could even use it to call your own API, right? You could even call it your own API that is secured with AD, right?
Yeah.
So it piggybacks the authentication. Yeah, makes perfect sense.
And
I would love. Yes, sorry.
And it manages the token refresh. All right, that's
No. And that's really critical as well. So you don't have to worry about the auth because the auth is
at all.
No.
Yes.
And then, maybe sooner or later we get to the model where the auth is just is no longer a challenge. It's being managed for you automatically, regardless are you writing a first-party application or a single-page application or whatever. But anyway, whenever we get there, we'll see. And one thing what I wanted to still ask before we go to the articles, and I know that we're spending quite a lot of time, but such a good discussion, John. You mentioned the workflows, and obviously we are pushing now heavily the people to move away from the SharePoint classic workflows and the 2010 and 2013 workflows and start using the Power Automate. What's your take on that one? Is it mature enough? Can we do that? What are the gaps from your perspective? Why wouldn't people actually move over?
Okay, so
or are they moving over? What's your perception? What's happening?
I'm asking questions. Like you're just adding questions. What do you think?
I think there are so many actions in SharePoint that people want. And a lot of them we have to do with send HTTP to SharePoint. And that remains an area where a consultant might be happy to do it, but an end user is like, okay, unless I can find a blog post and just copy and paste, and there are a lot of people that do this, unless I could find that particular example with the blog post and just make it work, it just remains a little bit still too hard. So there is that. And I think in the platform itself, there is one piece that I would really like to see, which is in SharePoint, you have this SharePoint workflow. You have this concept that I want to wait until a property changed. So imagine an approval is waiting and you're going to wait until the item is approved or until the status on the list is changed to, something. That remains, you can't do that easily. It's really, the old SharePoint workflow is a timer job that wakes up every, 15 minutes, I think. I'm going to get it wrong. Anyway, so it wakes up every 15 minutes and check and then goes back to sleep. Whereas Flow is very much a webhook-based engine. So to do that properly, you almost need an action that behaves like a webhook to say, I want to basically pause and sleep until this item's property has changed, and then it's re-triggered the webhook, and then continue. So you can build that pattern right now with some HTTP, but it's tricky. But I think when we get that, I don't know. I think that requires the engine-based update. So it's something that Logic Apps and Flow team will have to build. But once we have that, then I don't really see there's a problem with what's remaining to build what's out of the box. Maybe the 30-day limit. That's probably another one.
Can you explain what is a 30-day limit?
Okay, so Logic Apps and Flow have a lifetime limit in how long they can run. A Flow will run and terminate on the 30th day. Now, in the documentation, it's dropped down to 28 minutes. I don't know. Maybe they
28 minutes?
28 days. Sorry.
Oh, because there's quite a difference between 28 minutes and 30 days.
30 minutes. 30 days is now 28 days. 28 days. So to protect against that for very long running flows, you end up saying, okay, let's put a parallel branch that times out at 28 days. kill the current flow and restart it somehow. Either call a HTTP or update the item for no dummy reason and then just restart the flow. Logic apps, the gap is much bigger, but in Logic apps, you can attach your own integration accounts, like bring your own VM capacity. So in Logic apps, you start with 30 days, you can extend that to 3 months. With an integration account, you can extend that to a whole year. So that's Logic apps has a lot more, tweaks about how long you want your flow to run. But that's potentially a problem. We do have workflows that take a very long time. So you either have to build it differently, or you just have to beat people up before they you can't sit on the
respond, or you send them email saying, "Hey, did you see my workflow?"
You stop sending them adaptive card in Teams. You just keep spending.
Could you please react? Could you please react?
Well, to be honest, I think in many cases right now that's the only way to get response from certain people, because just keep on pushing. There's so many things happening.
Exponential increase, you have to go to exponential decrease, where you start like every hour and then you go to every 30 minutes, every 15 minutes, and then respond.
Oh, no.
Cool. Let's do some articles before we close up, so we don't take way too much time. I think we're still in the schedule, hitting the 1 hour time frame or so. Some articles from last week, pretty silent or a slow week in many perspectives, due to many reasons, but some new articles from Microsoft Script Lab now supports Outlook. So basically you can now do automatic scripting directly in Outlook, which is pretty cool actually. So you can automate stuff almost like building your own Outlook flows. Or is it? No, it's not flow, obviously, but it's add-ins or macros, so to say.
Yes.
So
because these are macros. Can I call HTTP?
That's a good question.
Yes, you can. So that's actually, I use a Script Lab in Excel to automate some things, and you can call basically an API. Like, because there is the fetch client. You can call an API. You can authenticate with it. You can do whatever you want. It's just a JavaScript engine that you run. So it's brilliant.
So you could actually start a flow or do an Azure function or whatever behind the scenes. That's actually pretty cool. Now, some other new articles. This one came last week as well. Build Microsoft Teams apps with Visual Studio and Visual Studio Code extensions. So basically, a kind of a reminder on the fact that in the build, we released this Microsoft Teams extensibility, which is in preview still. But basically making it easier to build Microsoft Teams applications, in this case using JavaScript, but the extension integrates directly in Visual Studio Code, so you can actually spin up stuff. And unless I'm completely mistaken, so this is the Visual Studio Code part, and the Visual Studio templates are in, well, they're coming. We haven't yet released them, so they should be coming pretty soon as well. But really making sure and making it easier to build Microsoft Teams tabs and bots and all of that stuff. Now, this is going to replace SPFX for Microsoft Teams? Not at all. Is this going to replace Yo Teams for Microsoft Teams development? No, that's not the intention.
It's just different tool, different approach.
Different tools, different objectives, different technologies behind the scenes. And they're basically just additional tools within your toolkit, and then you choose which one do you want to use. Again, as an example, because we mentioned authentication, that is a good example where SharePoint Framework absolutely is the easiest one, because the auth is just taken care of. You don't have to worry about
hosting.
And hosting, a big thing.
Right, because you don't need to spin up any resources to host it, right? It's already there.
Almost like auto-hosted add-ins, if people remember those still. Anyway.
You heard it SharePoint Framework web parts deployed to Teams are like auto-hosted add-ins.
Yeah, maybe for those who know what is an auto-hosted add-in, which we did not, it was never actually going GA because we were unable to figure out the cost model for it. Anyway, go and have a look on the internet and find what was auto-hosted add-ins if you don't know what it is. This one was released last week as well. So this is now the official documentation related on supporting embedding the portal directly in the Microsoft Teams as well. So this is obviously exposing an individual page, and then you can click and read the articles and all of that. But this is one of those holy grail requests from the customers to actually embed the portal directly in Teams. So having the corporate communications together with collaboration in a single tool. So,
and just to clarify, is this exclusive only for the modern sites, or can you include any?
Yes, this is
site?
Only for modern sites, only for modern SharePoint
There you
sites.
go. So yet another reason for you to go to modern.
Correct, and we do call out all of the different limitations, and also it's really important to see. And right now, there's no native navigation, or the footer is gone, the header is gone, and all of that. There will be adjustments on all of this stuff later on. Well, there will be more native support for this one. Right now, you have to actually build the application using App Studio to make it exposed as a personal application. So you need to do some level of a configuration. Again, configuration, not code, to make it actually happen within your implementation. So, but and tutorial video as well, just making sure that people don't have to ask too many questions on the comments. Do we have questions? No, we don't. Good. So, yes. So from John, how to provision SharePoint list and resources with only standard Microsoft Flow using execute site script action. So is this cheating? Or how do you explain this, John?
Okay, so
getting things done.
Yes. I was exploring how is the new, we can now create a SharePoint list from Excel. Yeah. And I thought initially, ooh, new background APIs. How does that work? So I was digging through digging through how it's implemented, and I realized that it's actually all calling APIs to do it. And one of the APIs they call is this one called execute site script action. And it's actually been around for, I think it's been updated to the CSOM since early this year, but I only saw it recently. And so I went and dig around the API, tried to find more information. It's not well documented. I don't know whether that's intentional or whether I should help out and document that. But what that means really is that we can use a site script like this create SP list with the sub actions to set your title, because you want to create a list with no spaces and then change the title to with space. That's a SharePoint ritual that we have to obey. But you can also create custom fields like XML field for your choice. And I really like this. I really like skills that we can learn in Office 365. So learning site script means you could use it with create site out of the box. You can now use flow to execute, and it's completely a standard flow action. So you don't need to have premium to call Azure functions or something like that. And also, you can call this from SPFX. So if you're in SPFX and you just want to say, oh, deploy my SharePoint web part, but if the list that's backing it doesn't exist, then quickly run this thing, and then it creates a list for you in one call, right? Whereas if you were calling REST, you have to say, create the list and check if it's there, and then add this column is there, and so on. So very nice way of learning something that's, Microsoft's obviously still adding more to the site scripts. So that's going to be a pretty useful skill, I think, for devs and also citizen devs to learn this pattern. It's very useful.
Absolutely. Cool. Really cool.
Yeah,
really cool stuff.
Writing that
Absolutely.
Up. Yeah.
Now, then Serge, Luca had a really nice video, Power Platform PPM Toolkit. Do you want to do a quick intro on this one? Let's not actually scan the whole video, but
I will
explain it. What is it all about?
Yeah. So Serge Luca, Dr. Flow, he's been doing a lot of SharePoint-based complex business process management, so complex workflows using Microsoft Flow. And what he's developed over time is a pattern of building complex state machines, and even maybe backed by a SharePoint list. So this is a kind of his latest all-round video that describes all the little tricks and how do you design an overall solution, and maybe even have a Power Apps to see the status of your various approvals and who is up to, and I want to reassign that step to someone else. All back with SharePoint list or CDS or SQL, kind of backing is agnostic. So very interesting and comprehensive video to go through if you're keen to think about how do we do a complete approval or even mapping your entire business process using Flow. So a lot of different pieces that he's put into this.
Yeah, really cool. Really cool stuff. 40-minute video. I think it was 40 minutes for now. So really cool stuff from Serge.
Yeah.
Now this one, new code tour option for SharePoint framework upgrades for Office 365 CLI. Waldek, do you want to do a quick intro on explaining briefly what it is?
Absolutely. So in the last version of Office 365 CLI, we have added new report meant for upgrading your SPFX projects from one version to another. In the past, we would have only a report based on text or Markdown. And these would a report would give you an overview of all the different steps that you would need to go through to upgrade the project. And it goes way beyond just upgrading to versions, because sometimes you need to update a piece of code. Sometimes you need to change something in manifest. And in this report type, so in this version, we've added new report type based on the VS Code Tour extension, which is basically a very interactive way available only in VS Code, in which we can take you directly through each file in project that is affected by the upgrade and take you exactly to this place and tell you, okay, change this line, in this line, change this thing to this another thing, which makes it really visual and very interactive. Exactly. So we've introduced this new report, and we will be improving that over the coming weeks and months to basically give you a really simple experience to apply all the different steps to upgrade your projects from one version to another.
Yep, really cool stuff. Really, really cool stuff. So you don't have to worry about the upgrading or trying to figure out how do I upgrade. No, everything is being given for you. So really cool stuff. This one is from Harsha Vartini. So get all content types from Content Type Hub using SharePoint REST API v2.1 using JavaScript. So this might be slightly confusing. We have this slightly even weird naming convention for some of the REST APIs. So there's a v2 API and there's a v2.1 API. I do not have exact insight why did we decided to call it 2.1 API, but still there's basically a access points which are packing the Microsoft Graph APIs for content types as well, because content type has a Graph equivalent APIs, and these are the native APIs. And the difference of, okay, so please use Microsoft Graph always when possible. But then if you are in JavaScript and SharePoint, you don't have to go through the permission dance, because you can hit the v2 endpoint as well. And that's basically then gives you the access without the Graph scopes and permission and all of that stuff. So more simplified thing to do that. I can see John is basically already figuring out, but in the Flow, I
can do it in Flow. I can call this thing with a thing. SharePoint actions.
Good. This one is from Marcin Wojciechowski. Apply theme for SPFX web parts. So basically looking into on how the themes are, and then how do we render stuff in dark or in contrast, and depending on a chosen path in the themes. So there's multiple different ways. Do you want to do this? Again, debatable. But then this one would change your theme setting to be based on the selection of the end user, if they're using the dark setting on themes or not. So good way of handling that. Obviously, hard coding styles not necessarily the best thing to do, but again, if there's basically 3 different theme options for themes. There's
but the question is,
normal, dark,
and colors based for themes, or does it only look at, okay, so if themes is in dark, what does it mean for my web part?
Yeah, that's basically the intention. Yes.
Right. Because then it could be showing its own colors as opposed to aligning with default ones, right? So
absolutely. It's brutal force.
Getting things done. Sometimes this is the only way forward. Yes.
Akash had a deploy SPFX solution on multiple sites using GitHub Actions and Office 365 CLI, so basically automation of deployment of stuff. CLI does support all of this stuff, so quite easily doable. Right, Waldek?
Correct.
Yeah, and you could use PnP PowerShell test as well. Again, multiple different tools from which you can choose what is the right one for you.
GitHub Actions?
Well, not in GitHub Actions, good point. But for deployment of web for pages, that's true as well, because the PnP PowerShell core is coming, and then that might actually change the situation. Find all pages utilizing Microsoft 365 Learning Pathways web part. This one is basically originally from Lorian as a question, and then Sebastian Lever just provided the answer for it. Now, what's just multiple things here is basically this gives you the story on how can you find all of the pages which are using explicit web part. And that's the unique GUID of the Learning Pathways web part. But PnP PowerShell has this pretty awesome submit PnP search query commandlet, which will give you then the execution options on that. So really cool stuff. The easiest way to store, are you sure that that's the easiest way?
Yes.
Okay. Are you the authority?
I think so.
You can actually say that that's the easiest way.
I find it the easiest way. People are entitled to.
And it's an more interesting title than one of the ways, but
exactly.
Sorry.
No, but it's but basically, if you think about different approaches, I find it the easiest one.
Absolutely, from your perspective, but is it the easiest? Anyway. Yes. So the whole point being on the fact that there's basically a application-specific storage in the graph, which you can actually use for the applications as well. Okay, that actually gives you slightly more insights on that one. That's actually pretty cool. And I don't think, like you noted on the blog post, not that many people probably are aware that there is this option available. So
yeah.
Which, by the way, is using the OneDrive behind the scenes. So it's
correct.
Cool.
Does this sync to my OneDrive folder when I?
Yes. It creates a file. It creates a folder and file in OneDrive. So, and that is just being part of the sync, right? So whatever you put in there, it's available in OneDrive. So if you open the app on the phone, if you have desktop app, if you have browser app, you can access settings in the same way, and you update them from single place, and they're sync all over. So, and also this is a perfect approach if you build a single page app that consists only of client-side code. So you don't have your own database, you don't store anything by yourself. Right? Because if you have a database, you'll probably store it there. But if you don't have anything, so if you build a SPFX app or Teams personal app or single page app, and you don't have a backend storage, well, that is a perfect option because you get it for free.
Yep, absolutely. That's actually a really good point. So you could actually use it as a complex storage of data. Well, obviously, if the data gets super complex, maybe not necessarily the most performant option. But again,
sometimes
it's free.
Yeah, sometimes I build an app, I don't want to store your data, even though it will improve cache and make it much faster for you. But I actually don't want to store it because there's GDPR, there's all these other problems.
And with this, you can give it to user, and the best part is it's a file in their account, so they can see what you store for them. They can open it, they see a file. If they don't like it, they remove it. It's there. It's basically the same way as if you install a desktop app and it creates a file on a disk. It's the same thing.
Yeah. But you save it in the file in your cloud disk, which is your OneDrive for Business, and
always synced. Yes.
Now, this one is really cool from David Ramalho, how to make Microsoft Graph requests using PnP and Office 365 CLI. So basically demonstrating how to get the access token, how to authenticate, how to call things. One of the beauties of PnP PowerShell, if we would compare that to the SharePoint on PowerShell, is that you can actually do all of this stuff. So you can actually get access on access tokens and authenticate. And you can easily hit those endpoints. Pretty same actually as with Office 365 CLI. So quite easy to actually authenticate against the APIs and then use stuff. So nice GIF animations as well. Thank you, David, for that one. How to call Microsoft Graph API from PowerShell to get Microsoft Teams details. We are clearly on the same theme. So
PowerShell
basically,
graph, PowerShell graph, PowerShell graph.
automate. Yes, exactly. Now, this is slightly more complicated because that's not using the PnP PowerShell. And the PnP PowerShell actually can automate all of the settings, the creation of app registrations, all of that behind the scenes, which is actually pretty awesome. So you wouldn't have to do this because it can actually create the backend settings in Azure for you. But again, I think the usage scenario is pretty much then exactly the same. So and getting access on hitting APIs and all of that is pretty much the same. Yeah. Now, this one's from Alex. This is a good pointer from Alex. We had a memory leak pretty recently in the Office 365 the PnP Authentication Manager, and they had a backend which was basically using that extensively. And then the fix here is to use the dispose method, so using as the model, as the guidance. So you remember the dispose, because behind the scenes, if you open up a thread which doesn't get disposed, then you can see a memory leak like that one. And then a final thing from Sergey is how to efficiently delete the node modules for Windows. This is actually, I've seen this in the past as well, and I'm using my own tricks to do this, but it's good that somebody actually blogs about it. If you delete the node modules from SPFX solution, which are pretty large, using the Windows Explorer, it actually takes ages to make it happen. If you use command line and rmdir, it works like 30 times faster. It's serious. There's massive difference. It's just speeds streamlines the whole process. So, and he's walking through how to then add this fast delete option to, as a right click on the Windows, and so that's pretty cool. Cool. That's it. I think somebody has a meeting starting in 1 minute, unless I'm completely mistaken. Now we're slightly above 1 hour.
Unless it is you. Unless it is you.
No, I don't actually have. No. Good. So as expected, a lot of discussions when we're chatting with John. So any last words? What's interesting? What's happening this week? Is something super cool or interesting what you're working on for both of you? What's happening? It's summertime in here, but it gets to be wintertime in Sydney, right?
Yeah. It's
so now instead of 29 degrees, it's 22 degrees, right?
No.
Winter.
No, it's about 15.
Okay.
Ooh, that is winter. So that's summer in Finland, right? Yeah.
I have never lived in a city that snows. I have never plowed snow from a driveway. I don't know what that is.
Some say you need a shovel for it.
Yeah. But that's how you save time, to be able to have time to build your own startup and then do stuff, right? So that's the secret. So
there you go. If you want to be a successful entrepreneur, move to a country when there is no snow, so that you do not lose any time on shoveling your driveway.
Well, that's the learning of this week.
I thought you stay at home and then you don't go out, and then you could.
Yeah, that works as well. Yes, absolutely. But anything interesting happening now? Any virtual conferences joining recently or in upcoming week? I'm actually I'm joining today. There's what is it? The con. What is it? What's the conference name which is happening today? Come on, I should know this.
So I don't know about you, but over the weekend I watched the virtual 24-hour Le Mans.
I didn't watch 24 hours on that. It is Global 365 Global Con 2 yesterday.
What is that for event?
Where we have Jeff Deeper talking, Naomi talking, Chris McNulty talking, Brad McKay talking, Luca, me, and so on. So Lincoln Demarius chats. So
wow.
So basically, one of these big virtual conferences is happening during this week. So I'm joining at least in my session and Jeff's session to answer questions. So if there's any technical questions, and then SPFX teams for me. What you're doing on this week, Waldek?
On Wednesday we're doing a webinar at Rencore about what are the different things you have to know before you deploy SharePoint framework solution package to production. So what are the different things as an admin you should know up front? So investigating all different angles like APIs, permission requests, dependencies on other libraries, hosting location, and so forth and so on. So we will explain all of that, walk you through it, show you what are different things you look into the package, and then what are the different other ways that might be easier for you as an admin person who doesn't code to do it.
Yeah. What about you, John? Anything interesting happening this week?
So last month had quite a few virtual conferences that I presented in. This month I had to go back to my startup, make sure the thing's rolling. The second app, which is Clarity, the scanning one and the monitoring one, that one is actually, the trial is actually, people can sign up to trial now. So I've been busy in the back end making sure the Azure functions don't fall down. We had a funny APEC outage this morning. It's very...
80?
80 outage, very brief, only about an hour and a bit. So they got it resolved quite quickly. But it's interesting for me because from a monitoring point of view, there was a lot of flows that failed. And then I'm thinking, okay, what kind of report? Yeah, what kind of report do people want to see? And then do they want to hit a button that restart all the flow? That seems incredibly crazy. We could do it, but there could be a lot of bad effects. Like imagine your flow run twice, and so a lot of thinking around that, but just making sure the lights are on and don't fall down.
That's actually a really interesting time when you're releasing a new product or a project, and then you can see people, oh, they're using it, and then it's, no, they're using it too much, no, and then it's
they're using it wrong.
Exactly.
I went over my 200 Azure Functions limit first time. Azure Functions 8200. So I need to think about what that means. No more hourly scans. You get scanned once a day.
that you created 200 functions?
No, it runs so much that I've run out of credits just on Azure Functions.
Oh, okay, credits. Yeah, gotcha.
So Australian converted, it's about 200 Australian for me. Yeah.
Cool.
Right. So for that you run then on a plan as opposed to the usage one, which gives you the first million runs for free, right? Because if you
I blew through that million a long time ago, and then I used all my MVP credits too, and now there's a lot of API calls.
Yeah, I can imagine. Anyway, so thank you for this one. Thank you, Waldek, for joining. Thank you, John. Really good discussion from a different perspective, and it's actually good to hear what's happening on your side of the technology as well. So really, really cool. Hopefully you don't have to do any WSP packages this week also. So just before we close, when was the last time when you created a WSP package? Just out of curiosity.
Created?
Or maintained.
Oh.
Are SharePoint framework packages technically WSP?
Well,
nope.
Sure.
No, there's it.
No, they're not.
There's it.
They're open XML files. So.
Okay, they're not.
Then it's been a while. So never mind. Let's actually move on.
It's a few years. It's 6 years. Okay, I think maybe even more. It's way back.
Oh, now I remember the thing what I needed to actually just a few things which is happening on this make, at least from my side. So we're looking into releasing the CSAM.NET standard, which is pretty important. So we can actually then finally do
John is like,
PnP PowerShell for PnP PowerShell core, and we can start doing all of that stuff. So finally, that's getting. And then there will be
this Wednesday.
Yeah, it might be actually this Wednesday. So
which will be a Thursday in Australia, but
yes, that's true as well. That is true. So unless there's any last-minute findings, but it looks really, really good. So we can actually push it out, a new version of the NuGet, which will then contain the .NET standard of the CSAM only for cloud. And we know that we're getting feedback on that, but that's a separate discussion. And then there's a new blog post coming up also related on SharePoint Starter Kit v2, which is now out, where we actually have a lot of new web parts, and individual web parts can be installed separately, which is a good thing. So. Woohoo! you can actually take one of the, let's say, your email web part and just plug and play that one to your tenants and not install all of the other web parts, which is a quite classic request for the starter kit. But a lot of other stuff as well. But I think that's it for now. So thank you, John. Thank you, Waldek.
Thank you, Vesa.
Great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Vesa.
We'll come back with and we'll get back to you, John, later on, within a year or so latest. So it's good to have people to catch up with the people as well. But
by then, John will be a millionaire, and he might not have time for us.
That's true. That is true.
So maybe we need to book it already now, just to be sure.
Yes. Can you let your admin know, and then let's try to figure out the right spots here. Now, anyway, thank you everybody for watching and listening if you're doing the podcast, and we'll be back with another PnP Weekly within a week. So bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye.